So am I doing this for like a televised audience? Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. Hi to you and you and you and you out there, and anybody who's watching or listening out wherever you are. In Philly, what's up to Philly? What's up to who else? Mexico City friends. What's up to El Monte, South El Monte? What's up to, who else do we want to say what's up to? We'll come up with more what's ups later. My name is Caribbean Fragosa. I am the co-director of the South El Monte Arts Posse. And so you'll be hearing from us for the next 45 minutes, the South El Monte Arts Posse and Real Revolution from Philadelphia. Like I said, the South El Monte Arts Posse is an organization, an arts collective based out of South El Monte, California, which is located in the San Gabriel Valley, not too far away from here, maybe half an hour away, for those of you who don't know. It's really close by, actually. And we're an arts collective comprised of, yes, artists, but writers, scholars, educators, gardeners, urban planners, wayward youth, anybody who you can think of, and anybody who would want to participate in a posse like ours is invited and encouraged to participate. And we are dedicated to an arts practice that is really grounded and rooted in rethinking our use of space in particular, and engaging conversations with community in that process of rethinking space and how we relate to the space that we live in, to the streets, the way streets are arranged in our neighborhoods, to the way vacant lots, factories, parks, shopping centers, anything, the way any of those things and others shape the way we experience life in our community and the way we build community with each other. Because all of those things do shape the way we make culture and the way we establish relationships or don't with one another. And so, anyway, those are some of the things that the South El Monte Arts Posse thinks about. And to give you a better idea of what we do, our latest project is called, we have a baby roaming around here. Okay. And our baby is also part of our arts posse, just from before birth. She's been part of our posse. Our latest project is called Activate Vacant. And Activate Vacant is a project where we have inspected vacant lots throughout South El Monte and El Monte and tried to rethink those spaces and tried to think about how they shape our relationship to our community, but also how they might be opportunities for new things to happen, new things to sprout in our neighborhood, in our communities. Because typically, at least in South El Monte and other nearby communities like Pomona, which is right on the other side of the 10 freeway, literally walking distance from here, is filled, and these communities are filled with vacant lots that have mostly been vacant for years and years and years, even before the recession. And they've been mostly fenced off, and communities have been prohibited from entering and using these properties in any way, shape, or form. So they're mostly filled either with trash or overgrown weeds. And I've always really looked at these spaces as opportunities for growing food, for building playgrounds. there's such a, in my opinion, a great need for public spaces where people, families, youth in particular, can come together and just be and do what they want with space. Space is such a commodity, and it's so expensive and precious, and to have chunks of space and land fenced off for nobody's use is I don't know, it's such an untapped and wasted wealth that could be opened up to community. And so anyway, for Activate Vacant, we decided to invite artists from South El Monte, from the greater LA area, and now from Philadelphia, to come to El Monte, to South El Monte, to learn a little bit about our community and to think about how these spaces could be used in different ways by making art in these lots. And so we've had one project, which you see right up there, or can maybe sort of see. It's called Ay Corazon. This one was, this is a project that I made. And then I'll talk about the other projects. So Ay Corazon was, what do I call it? A poem installation. Two-word poem installation that I created for this one particular lot. I was really interested in the fence and how the fence really does its job, which is to block off people from even thinking about entering this space. And so I wanted to use that tarp that covers the fence and that obstructs the view of that space. And I was interested in the color. You can't really see the color very well, but it's kind of like that chalkboard, green, black. And it resembled a huge chalkboard every time I drove or walked by it. So I decided I want to write something on it. And I've always been a big fan of graffiti. And, but I didn't want to do graffiti. I wanted to try something different. And I wanted to do something that was in a way friendlier to the community, because even if you do friendly spray can graffiti, a lot of people have some resistance to it. They think of graffiti often as a sort of an act of aggression to the space. And so I wanted something that would be better received by the community. I wasn't as concerned by the police or local community authorities. I wanted the people of the neighborhood to like it. I really did want them to like it. So I decided to put my best cursive skills to use and spell out Ay Corazon, which means, oh, my heart in Spanish. It's like an exclamation, Ay Corazon. And you get to hear Ay Corazon in so many songs in Spanish, because it's like, Ay Corazon, I miss you, you've broken my heart, you've betrayed me and left me all alone, and I'm gonna die. There's Ay Corazon, I love you, you're the greatest thing that ever happened to me, we're gonna live happily ever after, on and on and on. So there's different ways that you can exclaim Ay Corazon, oh my heart. And it's also my mushy two-word poem to my own sweetheart, Romeo, because that's what I call him all the time. I call him Ay Corazon. It's Ay Corazon this and Ay Corazon that. And so I shaped the words out of just clothes, what is that, like those wire hangers. I reshaped them, stole them out of my mom's closet, and then reshaped them into this thing. And then I used plastic grocery bags that just become litter everywhere. And I reused them, I braided them very meticulously and painstakingly and tediously. And I created this thing called Ay Corazon. And like I said, I really wanted community to enjoy it. And I wanted just these two little words to interrupt the monotony of the community, where nothing like this ever happens. And you never see, at least in my neighborhood, any expressions of the arts, like not even graffiti. I mean, there's not even anything. And there's a lot of big blank spaces and big blank walls and a lot of big gray warehouses with nothing on it except maybe some corporate emblem. And I think I was successful in interrupting, I don't know, the fabric of the community in some way, at least for a few days before it was finally torn down. We put it up on a Friday, and by Tuesday midday, I drove by and I saw that the words had been pulled from the fence, but not completely taken down. They were just kind of warped, so it looked like on the fence, but it was still up there, so you could tell that somebody was trying really hard to yank that thing off. And I knew it was bound to happen, but I got out of my car and I was upset, of course, because they destroyed my masterpiece, and I noticed some pliers lying on the ground, and I thought, oh, these dummies are trying to like pull this thing off with pliers. Don't they know you need wire cutters to cut wire? And so I went off to run some errands, and then I came back, and then I figured, oh yeah, they figured out how to use the wire cutters, so they snipped everything off, and it was cleared away completely. So I was happy to get some Facebook buzz from some of my friends and acquaintances from the neighborhood, and I think they appreciated it. And it was also a family project because everybody got involved in helping me get this thing up. My parents and my in-laws, and the baby was crawling around the whole thing. So I'm also really interested in arts practices that can involve family, you know, like how can you be a parent and a partner and a daughter and all these different things and still be able to have an arts practice in your community in particular. So that's what we did. That was the final product. And then we had sort of this impromptu reception that kind of happened after. And we had people that came out. We met some really great people. That was when I met Rocio for the first time. And Alice came out on her bike, and people honked, and it felt like a reception, but like something that I was not bored at, and trying to freeload off the cheese and the wine as fast as I could. Like I actually was enjoying our conversation and meeting people, and Monte, bebe. So it was a good time. So that was our first of our Activate Vacant projects. And, oh, am I going the wrong way? Should I just talk about that one? Well, this was our second Activate Vacant project. This one was by Christopher Velasco, photographer, CalArts alum. I met Christopher at CalArts. I'm also a CalArts alum. And he, like I said, is a photographer, but he didn't want to do a photography project. He wanted to do some sort of installation also. He could have done a photo project if he wanted to. And, hello. no. She's gonna keep grabbing the microphone. You wanna talk about these? Okay. So introduce yourself and then.
So I'm Romeo Guzman. I'm the co-director of Southern Monte Arts Posse. I wanna give a big hello to Professor Martinez. Alma, it's so great to see you. Alma does a lot of great stuff with transnationalism, took Zuzu to Mexico City, never been to Mexico City, took it to Colombia también. So just thinking about sort of across different scales is really great. So Christopher Anthony Velasco wanted to do something that sort of played with what it means to be queer and what it means to be queer in public space, but in a sort of very subtle way. So what he did is he invited all of us to help him decorate this vacant lot that's right behind a bus stop. So we brought figs, we brought donuts, we brought coffee, and we invited all the bus drivers all the people waiting for the bus to get some yarn and decorate. So, and one of the great things about this is that you realize instantly that you can't do anything wrong because it's just yarn and you're just covering something. So it really provides a way for everyone to not only overlap and build on each other, but for everyone to be an artist in a very comfortable, in a very comfortable sort of environment, right? So we had people that never did art before. We had little abuelitas doing art. We had my uncle, cousins, things like that. I'm gonna go a little bit quickly just so we can get the guys from Philly to talk a little bit more. Here's some other pictures. This is Anthony Velasco. The other thing that he did is he threw glitter, which at first, when he told us he was gonna do it, I thought it was really obnoxious. I thought, glitter, man, it's so hard to clean up. But really what we realized when he started doing it was that it had sort of ritual aspect to it, right? So him sort of throwing glitter was a very thoughtful, careful, and ultimately a little bit ritualized, right? Another detail. And then, okay. And the third artist that we invited is Jennifer Renteria. She's a urban landscape architect from USC, but her family also has a booth in the swap meet. So she's someone that has a relationship with South del Monte through the starlight, but someone also who sort of has a very philosophical and theoretical understanding of space. So what she wanted to do was she wanted to create a park that dealt with and brought in the natural history, but in an urban environment. So she sort of created this rendering of a possibility for this vacant lot. And what's great about this particular vacant lot is that for years it was a nursery, and then the city decided to create some sort of mall, and the crisis came in and nothing happened. So it's been empty for a really, really long time. So this sort of call to an urban, uncultivated park was really exciting. So those are the three projects that we have. And the fourth sort of project is really great. We have a Real Revolution from Philly, J.T. Rowan and Hugh Watson. And what we did with the artist residency is we told them, listen, just get your ass down here. We'll feed you, we'll house you, we'll take you to the local archives, we'll do all that stuff. And what we really wanted to get from having lived in New York for the last 4 years, we wanted to think about what does it mean to sort of bring someone from the East Coast to the West Coast? And can we learn something from folks doing work in the East Coast? Can our understanding of space be illuminated reciprocally, right? For us in South del Monte and for them back in Philly. And this is an arts organization that also works very much with youth, but on a very sort of grounded block level, right? So they work with youth on a particular block. So we were really excited to bring them. And now I'll just have them come up and talk. And folks in Philly, thank you for watching. Anyone have any advice about how to show this in an easy way? Highlight all of them, right? Okay.
Are you trying to show
Images?
Oh, just maybe just put space bar into them and not pop up just one at a time.
Okay.
Space bar.
Okay. And then I think I can do the rest. Okay. I think you can go like that.
You can hit up and down arrows.
Okay. All right, so I'm so honored to be here. Shout out to people, if there are folks watching in Philly and maybe in New York and other places, and the people that are watching for the South Monte Arts Posse as well. So Romeo and I and Huane all attended, and Romeo and I still do, Columbia University. We're in the same program, and Huane was in African American Studies. And so we met in New York, and Romeo and I connected quite a bit around trying to do certain things at Columbia around people of color issues, in particular in such a hostile climate that is Columbia University, and particularly from the history department, launched several initiatives both to make these more open spaces for people of color at Columbia, but also branching out from that, particularly for graduate students, into things that that try to build community around art. And one of the things that we did was an outdoor gallery right in front of the Hamilton Hall, which is famous because it was the space of the 60s and the 80s takeovers, the 80s being the anti-apartheid takeovers. And so, you know, we had, basically it was us arranged in that space showing a variety of art, some of it explicitly political, some of it just about beauty, you know what I mean? Just about demonstrating a certain type of beauty. And so on my research year, as Romeo is as well on his research year, moved out to Philly to start my archival work and all of that, and moved to Philly. Hugh Wayne and I, my partner, who's also here from the Real Revolution and the Black Arts Collective in Philly, we moved to Philly, and you know, I guess with the intention of having our home serve as a certain type of open space for people to do art and to work through certain things and all of that. And so one of the things, I have family in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a very hostile environment, particularly for youth of color. And so with planning to close 63 public schools in the next 4 or 5 years, astronomical levels of incarceration for young folks, high levels of people not having regular basic resources. And so we started out actually wanting to use our house as a space, and we've sort of gotten back to that. But what we ended up doing was, because we live in South Philly, and the youth that we initially started working with are primarily based in West Philadelphia, about probably it's driving distance or public transportation distance from where we live. So, you know, we were presented with this problem. Like, we don't have enough transportation to transport the youth back and forth to our spaces in South Philly regularly. So what do we do? You know, how do we build community around art without a real central space that we can use and use easily? So we decided to take art into the neighborhood that we work with. And so we started out with 6 youth, and just wanted to basically start talking to them about what it is that we could do to think about what a more beautiful community might look like in Philadelphia for them, from their vantage as youth, as potentially the most powerful folks in Philadelphia, but also at the same time the most vulnerable. And so what we start, you know, we regularly every Sunday actually go out and talk to the youth. And one of the things, just as a sort of anecdote, one of the things that we've been doing, that we did last, is we started planning, before Sandy came, that notably, we were planning a football tournament in a vacant lot. So there's a lot of resonance, and there's a lot of resonance with what the South El Monte Arts Posse is doing out here. And so, and how we came to that actually was, we had one of our other adult organizers draw out a picture of the block that the youth that we work with which grew from about 6 youth to about 25 quickly. Draw out the block. Our friend Dier in Philadelphia drew out the block and but left out key elements, for example, the stop sign or certain things. So we invited the youth to then draw those things, ranging in age from 16 and 17 down to about 6, to draw some of the things that they had that were missing from the block first, and then things that they would want on the block second. And so what we got was this, what that conversation led to was this desire for certain spaces, certain park spaces and certain other things. And so they decided that we should have a football tournament. And then we had Sandy, so we postponed our football tournament until we get back. But these are some of the ways that we've been thinking creatively about how to use art in relation to organizing alongside not just us as the organizers and the youth as, you know, our constituents, but all of us as organizers in a sort of level thing. Another thing that we've been working on in Philadelphia, actually as a Black Arts Collective, so there's a lot of overlap clearly between the Black Arts Collective and Real Revolution, but the Black Arts Collective primarily focuses on bringing queer people of color, particularly queer Black folks in Philadelphia who lack any real space to articulate themselves and what it is that they want to do and who it is that they are and all of these things. So our initial thing, we've had sort of informal art parties and all that But our first event will be on December the 1st on World AIDS Day. We're planning to host an event where we feature artists, where we feature singers, where we feature visual artists. We have a mobile gallery upstairs that you can easily clip photos to. So having photos and then changing all of our art that's around the house into spaces for other visual artists to display their things. And so the point of this is we moved from New York, which is still not I don't want to present New York as some black queer utopia or anything of that nature, but moving to Philadelphia where there is a lot of issues around being queer and openly queer and all those things, to really sort of, I mean, if that transition, that move prompted us to think about what it is that we would, what kind of space would we imagine? And one of the things, we notably met a good friend, Dee, who we've been kicking it with, and Dee came up with this idea to have Langston Hughes House. And so that's what we're gonna initiate on December the 1st. I guess moving into some of the images that we actually have present, I will call Hugh Wayne up. First, I guess I'll talk about the stuff we did in Philly, and then you could talk about the stuff that we did out here. Does that work? Okay, cool. So let me pull up some of the stuff that we did in Philly. Oh, whenever. So one of the things that we did in preparation, okay. So one of the things that we did in preparation for our trip to from Philadelphia to, I'm not sure what I just did. I don't know what's going on. Can you pull up that one? Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, but not the one I'm looking for. Only the ones I'm not looking for there. Closed it. I was gonna say open. Okay. So one of the things that we wanted to, again, because we primarily were coming out here to work on issues about space and art and all of that, one of the things, Hugh Wayne and I both study history, and Hugh Wayne in particular studied slavery at Columbia, but continues that into that sort of plays into our art practice and all of that. And so one of the things that we wanted to think about is just sort of literalizing our name, Real Revolution, thinking about revolutions and thinking about the spatial dynamics of revolutions. And one of the things that Hugh Wayne, teaches me a lot about, because I am a historian, but I'm not a historian of slavery by any means, is about maroonage and about this long arc history of moments in which particularly enslaved peoples in the Atlantic frame were mobilized to create revolutionary activity, whether those were, quote unquote successful revolutions, or whether those were, rebellions, or however those are named. And so one of the things that we wanted to do and initiate in our trip to think about Activate Vacant and all of the things around space and revolution and all these words that we tossing around was to do a shoot that invoked a particular history of maroonage, a particular history. And so maybe about a week before or 2 weeks before we were going to leave, I do collages primarily. And so I did this collage which incorporated their mixed media. So I actually used these little tiny photographs that Hugh Wayne made in the dark room with his own enlarger, and which you can vaguely see people in those images, and also images of faces, etc., that I was able to draw in. And I made this piece called Divination, which I call Divination. And so we decided to make this shoot, or to do this shoot, and essentially to recreate a moment, for example, say a Makandal or a Boukman, or some of these characters during the Haitian Revolution in particular, or in preludes to the Haitian Revolution, who were in the, who met in the woods to continue to engage in African-based ritual and spiritual practices. And those having been so central and essential for the organization of the actual Haitian Revolution. And so what was out, and then I'll shut up. But what was particularly interesting about this photo shoot is that we started out to say, oh, it was Huane and I, and then Dee, our other friend, and our other friend Alex. And so we just sort of, oh, let's do this, let's light candles and let's take pictures. And what was really interesting about this is how much everyone got into it. So they asked me, Alex and Dee in particular were like, oh, we're talking about the history of why I come to this particular piece. And so they're like asking me, and so one of the spiritual practices, African-based spiritual practices that I have some connection with is candomblé, and so I started to play this song, which is about Shango, one of the Orishas, and the Ifa, Candomblé, Santeria set of practices, and so what was really, really interesting is the ways that we all got into it in excess of, oh, we're just gonna look cute for the camera or something like that. And so what I was really sort of reminded of is the ways that our bodies remember all sorts of histories, when we hear certain sounds, when we see certain sights, when we smell certain smells, that we can't recall cognitively, but which our physical bodies can remember. And so, I think that that's true of art in some ways, that we channel certain things that we have no capacity to remember, but which our bodies can remember. And so I guess in letting Huane jump in here, one of the questions then that we came up with, that we distilled out of all of this work that we do in Philadelphia to bring out here to Southern California and ask with the CMAP folks, was the very simple question, where are the bodies? And so that question was, goes in two directions for us, considering all the things that I just rambled on and on about. And the first of those is this sort of history of captivity, and the second of those is also at the same time this history of maroonage, this history of moments in which people find themselves doing exactly what they're not supposed to do. For example, meeting in between the spaces of a plantation to plot a revolution. And so that was our sort of animating question. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to Huane to talk about some of the things that we've done already as part of the Activate Vacant project with the CMAP folks.
Do you mind if we get a little closer to see them?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
of course.
I can't see them back there. So I'm looking at, those are people in the middle, it's what am I looking at?
Around.
So here's the actual art piece, and then if you could, actually you probably can see it better here if you come to this.
Excuse me, it's really interesting. Oh my God, oh, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow.
I'm not a Mac person.
So I'm looking at, is there a human figure in here? I don't have
Right,
There are
so
human, there are
right there,
people
and
all
then it's the
around.
artwork in the middle.
Mhm.
Come here, look. Beautiful.
Oh, I see. So they're like at a table.
That's on the ground.
Oh, it's on the ground.
Right, right, and that's the piece in the middle, and as you can see, the three, that's JT right there, Alex was dancing, and then we have Dee who's participating in the beads and the rolling of the stones and everything.
The cowrie shells.
The cowrie shells.
So I guess I'll introduce myself first. My name is Huane Watson, and I've been recently dubbed AKA Wizzy Mac. Yes, AKA dubbed Wizzy Mac. Yes, christened by my partner, and I'll say it's a very spiritual thing for me, and I'll give you a part of my background to help you understand why. As Romeo, Caribbean, JT, and I were having a conversation last night around the dinner table, which I find to be really, really important for community, right? Food, I love food, right? And when we gather around food, right, we give off all of these energies, and a lot of our spirit, right, depending on who cooks the food or the smells and everything else, right, we can tap into the spirit of that sort of community that comes together. But I was born in Jamaica, right outside of, I was actually born in Kingston, but I grew up right outside and moved to Long Island, New York in 1996 when I was 8 years old. And
used to believe that United States of America sat on top of the clouds because I would watch the planes go by and just, you know, naive child I was, just thought of this place as being very magical, right? But since since being here, I've come into many realities about this place and about the people who live here and the people who have lived here, and come to realize how important ancestor is to me. My grandfather, my dad's father, and his grandmother, if you can think about the mountains that surround the San Gabriel Valley and double their height, my grandparents lived on top of a mountain in Jamaica, in the cockpit country, right, where Maroons ran away from plantations and hid into the mountains and fortified themselves. So I had the experience of, as a young child, walking, I guess you could say hiking, about 2.5 to 3 miles up to the top of the mountain. But oftentimes that would happen in the dark, which was a fearful, a frightening experience for me growing up closer to the city, urban environment where we had some lights and whatnot. But I was telling Romeo and Caribbean, as I shared with JT before, about my experiences of walking in the pitch black of the night and being very frightened by figures. But my grandparents told me, and it was actually an ultimatum, that you have to recognize people as you go along, right? As you pass through, as you make your journey on each and every time, you have to recognize people. So I learned how to recognize figures in the dark, right? And some of them, I would say, were spirits, right? There were people names that were being called out to as we would walk, or night masam and whomever and such, that were being called to at night, but me recalling, to myself saying, well, I know that person passed like 6 years ago, right? Why are we calling out to them? But I can vaguely make out that figure in the dark myself. But others were people who were yet and still alive. But when I moved, I left Jamaica and moved here to the United States, I would say I grew more human. I was very tapped into this world and this time. But as coming up on the eve of my 25th birthday, I was telling my friends here that I'm growing more spiritual and leaving the sort of like the human side of myself and being able to invoke a whole lot more, right? Being able to tap into radical imagination and historical imagination, but all of these arcs that return back to ancestor, all of these arcs that return back to land, all of these arcs that return back to indigeneity, and for me are so powerful when I think about Haiti and what people were able to do in the woods to invoke the spirit of revolution. I think about that day to day in all of my practices. So for me, when I take pictures, it's a very spiritual practice for me, and I think it often resonates with the people who end up participating. And I'll say photography is not an easy thing now. And the reason being, as I stand here and I wave to folks, because I'm on camera, right? I shoot film, and I picked up film photography in undergrad my second semester of my first year. My mom bought me a little ProMaster camera, which is on the cheap side. But I kept with it. I just kept with it. I kept with it. And though photography wasn't something my dad approved of, it's now something that is integrally a part of the family. And approaching people and with the desire to take their picture demands a lot of courage. And I'll say, because younger kids tend to sort of gravitate towards, right, or they might shy away, but in their innocence, it's sort of playful. And older folks tend to be the same way, but all of us who are sort of like smushed in between have grown to be a bit wary of the camera, right? If it's not a familiar face, right, behind it, right, we sort of grow wary because we're not sure if we want to be depicted in the way that the person is capturing us. And we also don't know where that photo will end up, right? It has a history of its own. And we can be close to that history, but then we can also be as distant, right?
as knowing who the photographer is. So I like to be on the street, and I like to be up front, and I like to confront people, and I like to draw people's energies and spirit out. And I seek the sort of, I look to the spirit. I look to the spirit, and though I'm shy and sometimes, and most of the time shy away from looking at people directly in the eye, when I pick up my camera and put that filter in front of me, right, it gives me a sense of courage to be able to face them head on and draw out a lot of like who they are and what they want to be, you know, what they want to be. But
I think they're already up at the bottom.
oh, they are? Thank you. Okay, great. But I guess I'll end with this. Is for me, I embody maroon each and every day, and what it means for me is the ability to move, to migrate, right, to be mobile, to be able to run away from and be able to run towards. And when I think about a place like Philadelphia, moving from an island nation, right, Jamaica, surrounded by water, and JT has heard this, well, JT actually highlighted for me the significance in it, but when my great-grandmother, who my older brother told me was an Arawak, you know, like the Carib and the Caribbean basin, Arawak indigenous woman. Though I love her, still love her to death, she irritated the life out of me because when I would stay with her, my time as a child in Jamaica, I would stay with her. She would wake us up right before sunset, and we would have to walk to the beach. And you know, it's warm climate and everything, but in the morning the ocean is frigid. And we would have to bathe in the ocean each and every morning that we were with her. And I couldn't understand why. No soap, no anything, but we would have to go and bathe each morning. But what's so powerful, again, about movement, right, about migrating and being able to connect with people's spirits, whether they're there or not, and tapping into the traces of history and traces of ancestor, is that moving to Philadelphia and in my studies of slavery, I came to realize how much contact people had with the ocean, how much contact people had with water, how much contact people had with the sea. And then arcing it forward to now coming to California for the second time, but Southern California for the first time, and learning about El Monte, right? And learning about the indigenous people here, and learning about El Monte meaning wooded place, right? And learning about the indigenous people sunbathing in the afternoon, but waking up in the morning, right? Before the sunrise, right? So that they could bathe in the cool water of the river, right? So that they can cleanse themselves still in the moonlight, says to me that yes, we have a shared history and we do have ancestor, and we can trace it and we can tap those spirits, and we can definitely feel those energies. And for me, it's such a powerful thing. So wherever I go and whenever I move my feet on this earth, I give reverence to place, right? And each time that I touch people and people touch me, I pass on my energy and I pass on whatever magic it is that I can give. And my modern magic is photography, right? Is being able to reveal certain things for folks, and then also have certain things revealed to me, because I often don't recognize what takes place in my photographs, and oftentimes until years later. So I just want to thank everyone here for the opportunity, because in my growth as a more spiritual person, I'm tapping all of the energies of the folks here, and I'm tapping each and every ancestor that is connected to us as we situate ourselves here and try to remain, live, survive on this earth that we have, which is our everything. So thank you.
I'm gonna take 2 seconds just to sort of like tap into these images really quickly. So this also was another photo shoot that we that we did out here, and it's kind of difficult to see there. But one of the things that when we met some of the folks, particularly Alice with the with the CMAP folks, there's a vacant house directly next door to her, which had we actually went over there to like pick oranges off the orange tree, and there were we saw these like amazing, like 3 of these very sort of interesting and amazing altars that the person who had lived there before had created. And so in tying back to all of the things that Hugh Wayne said, we wanted to like engage that. We wanted to engage that as a vacant space, and also to sort of like capture it. And so we went back at night, and we lit candles, and we again attempted to do the same thing that we had done in Philadelphia, and sort of invoke a certain type of spirit and energy and connection through these images. And so you can, again, if you're interested, you could come here and look, because I don't think that you're going to see much there. But but again, these very sort of like powerful images that come out of us tapping into the energy of this place, but bringing the energy and the ancestors from the place that we came from, and all of the things that we, and sewing that back in and through Jamaica and Virginia, where I'm from, and all of these different things. So if you're interested, come take a look at this, and we really appreciate your time and all of that. So
thank you.